and researcher on hyperautomation platforms. I think our students will be getting benefited from this session, and I hope for the best. Hope you all enjoy. And just a housekeeping before the session starts. Anyone can ask anything, but not during the session when sir is taking. You can just write it on the chat box, and also you can ask anything after he finishes. So over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sangeeta, and thanks a lot, CDAC and Sigma Learning for providing this opportunity uh,
Yeah,
to share this
thank
session.
you.
And I'll just share my screen. One second. Mm, yeah, I hope you're able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll just start my video as well, so that as Sangeeta was saying, we are all really sorry for the 1 hour delay, but we are good to start now. I think some artificial forces did not allow us to start the session, so it's all man versus machine, right? So we always will have the some issues or tuffle between man and machines. Okay, so thanks everyone for being patient. So I'm Raghav Naipati, and I'm presenting this session on behalf of CDAC and Sigmoid Learning. I have around 20 years of experience in digital automation space, hyper automation, robotic process automation, AI, and ML. And I have been delivering many such sessions in India and across. More than 10,000 hours of sessions I have been conducting, and really glad to present this session in front of you. And so please reach out to me, or you can reach out in the chat, or you can raise your hand in between if any pressing questions you have, or we will have 15 to 20 minutes spent towards the end for all answering all your questions. So please feel free, and I'll make sure that this session is interesting for all of you. I know it's a Sunday afternoon, but we'll spend this session in an interesting manner so that it adds value to your life. So with that, let's start. So let me do a full screen. Okay, so what we you can expect from this session is, first is motivation, right? So why we all are here, so why we want to learn data science or AI or ML, and why it is important, right? So I'll explain about that. What is the motivation behind learning this, and what is the AI journey? So I'll give a brief history of how or where it all started, and what are the trends we are seeing in the market in AI and ML. Then we'll deep dive into machine learning, and then we'll move to applications of AI ML. So where I'll showcase all those use cases which are currently live and which are currently used by various industries across in artificial intelligence and machine learning. And the last one being important for all of you, I know most of you are students, where you can how you can upskill, what are the jobs of future, and then how these courses will help you to build those future skills for the future. Okay, so with that, let's start. So what is the motivation? So I'll start with the famous quote by Mr. Ray Kurzweil. He is a famous futurist and technologist. So what he said is, we have created the machines to augment us, to amplify our effort, and to support us. Right. So we should not be afraid that machines will take over our jobs or take over our lives or organizations. Right. So we are using them as an extension, and I'll show that in during the course of the session, how we are using these machines or automations or algorithms to extend ourselves, our life, so that it makes our life easier. So don't be threatened by the machines, and don't be threatened by those movies like Terminator and others, which shows that machines are coming and they are going to invade humans. So all those are good in sci-fi movies, but right now still we are not at that stage, right? So with that, let's start. So this is again right. This might be a scenario where we have most of the work taken over by machines, which are repetitive, which are mundane, which are highly time consuming and inefficient and manual in nature. And humans will be left to do something which is more creative, more judgmental, right? Which needs more decision making and creativity. So we'll see that how these future jobs are coming, but this might be we are seeing this currently also in our day-to-day life, where we are augmented by the bots and machines and algorithms, and we'll see that in future as well. So this is just an humor to start the session, but this is the theme of the session, right? Where we have humans, we have machines, and we have to work together to extend our lives and processes and the organizations of the future. So with that, let's see what this new normal is, right? People are talking about this new normal and how we are impacted by this new normal. So as you all know, right, last year during the same time, we have been unfortunately impacted by COVID. And what happened is the industries uh, who were already in the journey of automation or digitization, they were less impacted. But the industries like paint industries, oil industries, farming, agriculture, right, they were not in the digitization or automation journey. So they never thought, right, this thing will happen. They were happy with their own brick and mortar type of work, right, where somebody will go to the paint shop, they will buy the paint. Farmers, right, they were happy that they had lot of laborers to work for them, and the laborers will research the crops and find out whether these crops can be grown at this time and how much water to pour. All those things were done manually by people. Similarly, with customer service agents, which are there in the front office, banks and others, right? They were happy selling you insurance, selling you credit card. They were visiting you, so everything was going normal. But once this pandemic struck, right, there were no human touch. So everything was online. So we started working online. I have my kids going, not going school, right? I'm sharing my laptops with my kids, my tablets with my kids, and we are sharing the internet with our family now. So people are fighting for internet now. So earlier we were fighting for the toys, physical toys, and going out. But last 1 year in my home, and maybe most of yours as well, we fight for internet. So because if somebody is using more bandwidth, then I will go and ask them, can I please share that bandwidth with me, right? So that new type of arguments and fight have started at our home because of this pandemic, and this is a new normal. People have started working from home. People have started taking courses from home, as you are taking right now. People are started working in terms of school, right, from home. So what happened is, when this at this stage, when these industries, farming, manufacturing, brick and mortar companies, they were not ready. So what happened is, they reached out to a few people, like a few people reached out to me as well, like how do we um, have this pandemic issue resolved, right? What do we need to do? So the advice for them is to upskill their resources and adopt to these new technologies, which is artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, so that everything can be digitized and no longer you have to go to a shop to buy anything. Everything is at your fingersteps, right? Is at your mobile phone or tablet or laptop, and you are not impacted. These business processes are no longer impacted. So they need to rethink their business processes. They need to rethink their business models to do this. So that's what happened. So the pandemic was really a big loss for everyone, but something good happened in terms like people realized that they are in need of these technologies to scale up their business models, to scale up their organizations, so that they can sustain for next 20 to 25 years, right? So that is a good thing which has happened. Now people realized that they need such technologies to scale up data science, AI, and ML. So that's again blessing in disguise, right? So something good has happened, and a bad thing has happened, like where people were not able to meet each other. So now with that thought, so let me give you a brief history of the automation, where it all started. So automation is anything, right, which is making our job or life easier. So it all started with industrial era in around 1800s, where companies like Ford, Mercedes-Benz, and all those companies, they started automating their manufacturing or assembly lines, right, where they had used machines which were augmenting or helping humans to do most of the jobs, and they were supporting the humans to do the job. So that started in the 1800s, where machines were supporting humans, right? That's an industrial era. Then we had the internet era around 90s. When I was growing up, I had internet at my home, and I was really astonished to see how I can connect to a person who is in US, right? I was able to connect a system which was in US or some other country, uh, and how I can access all the information which is not in my neighborhood, or which is not at my home, right? So till that time I was accessing everything which was near to my home or near to my neighborhood. But with internet, which empowered us to access everything beyond our reach, right? Where systems were able to talk to another system, a person was able to talk to another system. So that is the internet era. Now, with the internet era came lot of advantages. It widened our scope, it widened our minds, and people started to explore this along with the other automation aspects, where we finally reached out to a digital era in 2000s, where machines are augmenting humans in our day-to-day life. Everything we see now in our cell phone, in our tablet or laptop, all these apps are actually algorithms or models or automations which are helping us to do everything easily. Now you can order from Swiggy. Swiggy is again using AI. You can order from Amazon. You can do a ride share with Uber or Ola. So all these are empowered or powered by AI and ML, right? You can do shopping at your fingersteps with Flipkart and Amazon, which are using AI and ML and data science, right? So nobody would have thought this if the earlier industrial era has not thus set the benchmarks and set the pathway for us. Now, if you see, my kid does not eat anything without looking at the laptop and looking at her favorite YouTube channel, right? And all these are coming to her automatically. She doesn't have to do anything. She doesn't have to struggle. So she just clicks on YouTube, and YouTube knows which all videos she has watched earlier, and it is coming to her automatically. Another example I'll give is I have Google Home and Alexa at my place. So every day I wake up and I ask Google Home, uh, how is the weather, how is the traffic situation before pandemic, right? I'm talking, and my daughter used to ask how is the weather, so that if it is raining, she is happy that she doesn't have to go to school anymore, right? So this is the way that people are now embracing these technologies in and making it as part and parcel of their life, right? And you all should also be appreciating, right? These technologies are with us, and you guys will be the people who will be going out and building such more technologies. So that is the digital era which we all are living in, and we all should be proud and happy to have that with us. Now, with that, let's see the market. So AI market has been growing, right, from since last 2000, 2001, and there is a prediction that it will go till around 40 or 50 billion US market, right, by 2025. And most of the organizations who are in the banks, financial services, retail, healthcare, and in the pandemic, I'll give you more examples where healthcare was biggest industry who adopted AI and ML, right? Radiologists were using AI ML, the doctors were using AI ML to perform operations. So all this has happened in last 1 year. So we all should be proud that you guys are learning this technology, and the market, if you see, it is growing, right? It's not declining, it is growing day by day, and people are adopting such technologies day by day. So now with that premise, right, what is the motivation for you to be in this class, or going forward, what is the motivation for you to learn this technology? Let's start with the journey, where all it started. So it all started around 1950s, and I would highly suggest to watch a movie called Imitation Game. So it was based on the life of famous Alan Turing. So if you all know, Alan Turing is a famous scientist, and this movie is all about how Alan Turing used machine translation to translate between German and English, right? Because during the World War II, people were trying to understand what the Germans were speaking, and decrypt that language to English. And Alan Turing built this machine which was able to understand or translate the German language to English. And you should watch this movie called Imitation Game. So it all started with that, where a machine was able to do which is something similar to humans. It was able to have an intelligence similar to a human. So nobody would have thought that machine could translate between languages. And even Alan Turing's test, if you see in the test, he tricked many humans. He used a setup where he had machines on the other side and he had humans, and he tricked the human saying that there's a human sitting on the other side and you can ask questions and the human would answer. And the humans were getting the response as they wanted. They were surprised to see when he lifted off the curtain. They were surprised to see that it was a machine who was actually answering the questions on behalf of a human, right? So that was the biggest landmark in the history of AINM, and it started with that. And then many people started researching, and ELIZA in 1964 again is again a great landmark where a chatbot was used to chat with a human, right? So ELIZA was the first chatbot. So you would have seen these chatbots in all these websites now, Make My Tape, Pizza Hut, Swiggy, whatever, right? They are using chatbots now, but it all started. The genesis of that is ELIZA in 1964, and is the first chatbot which was built by the Joseph at MIT. So now what happened is people were having interest, people were building algorithms, but we saw a sudden dip from 1966 till 1990. Nothing much happened. So they called that as an AI winter, because there was not much investment into this technology, and also the ecosystem was not built to scale up these technologies, right? But people were still thinking, okay, there's something called AI, machine learning, but nothing happened. What happened in 1997 again is one of the key events when Deep Blue, Deep Blue challenged chess, right? It challenged humans playing chess, and it kind of started defeating, right, humans in playing chess. But again, biggest landmark happened when 2011, when IBM Watson, right, it won the famous Jeopardy game, and it won the popular $1 million prize. Right, it was a television show, and if you can see on the right side, it was like Jeopardy is like a famous television show, similar to your KBC kind of a show, right? And Watson won that first time, and nobody could have thought that a machine can win such kind of challenges. And that is the biggest landmark again, 2011, when IBM Watson did that. And then another landmark came in 2017. If we can see this year, the famous AlphaGo game, Google's DeepMind, they built this algorithm to beat the famous player in Go. So Go is again one of the sophisticated or highly challenging game, more than chess, right? And the Chinese checkers. So it is a Go, which is again an intelligent game, which is and the famous player was Lee Sedol, who is the world champion. And the landmark came when the AlphaGo, okay, algorithm beat the famous champion for number of times, and it started a biggest revolution in China, because the game Go was invented in China. And what happened after that, and you can read a book I'll share, where what happened after the computer beat the famous champion is Chinese went all berserk, right? And they were like panicking. And what they did is they started introducing AI in the schools. So people in the toddlers going to grade one and grade two, they forced people to learn AI and ML, because they were feeling miserable that how can a machine beat their famous champion in Go, right? And there's a famous book I'll share, which share this story about what happens when a machine beat the famous champion of Go, right? And this is all real. That's what I'm saying. So all this started, and now it is becoming more and more real. Machines are beating humans in all these games and technologies, and we should be embracing this so that we can use this in a constructive way, right? So these are all the history of how it all started. Now I'll go with these products in this digital era, right? So we all are surrounded by these products like Google. So every day we type in something, and automatically when you type something, I want to learn deep, it will say that learning, right? I want to learn data, it will populate automatically data, auto suggests data science, right? All these are happening because there is an page ranking algorithm which is built using machine learning to understand that what you are trying to type in, right? So you don't have to do anything much, it is automatically typing for you. Even same as YouTube is remembers whatever you have done in the past, and it is automatically recommending all those movies or all those music, everything for you. And Spotify, so all these are technologies which are helping you. Even Amazon, so Amazon uses AI ML from last more than 10 to 15 years, right, since it started. And it all recommendation is the biggest algorithm which Amazon has built, along with again Netflix, right? Based on your past history, whatever you have bought in the past, it will automatically recommend the next set of products or next set of movies for you. And nobody would have imagined that our life will become so easier, because earlier we used to go to shop and the shopkeeper used to recommend us based on whatever we bought earlier, right? Because we had a face to face contact with the shopkeeper. Now the shopkeeper would know, okay, Raghav has come, and he likes these colors and these kinds of shirts or t-shirts, and used to recommend. Now imagine a machine doing that, acting as a shopkeeper for you, and it remembers whatever I have bought in last, I don't know, many years, and it is recommending what I might what I might um, buy in the future, or what I might like in the future. It recommending for me. Similarly, Netflix, right? Earlier in my childhood, I used to go to a CD shop to buy the CDs, and the shopkeeper used to recommend me, "Why don't you watch this new movie?" Now Netflix is doing that. I don't need any shopkeeper for that. Netflix knows what I have watched, what kind of genres I like, what kind of movies I like, and then it is automatically recommending for me. So imagine how powerful the machines are becoming, and all these are becoming powerful because of the core technology, which is AI and ML. And then these are the technologies which new generation like you, which use day to day life, right? WhatsApp, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. So you do you see some photos, you like them, you tag them in Twitter, you like those tweets, and you like to retweet and do interesting thing in Twitter's, WhatsApp again, right? It is empowered by again AI and ML. So all these technologies which is helping you to get in touch or do the networking and other things are done by AI and ML, right? So the first one is search and auto suggestion, second is recommendation, third one is personalization. So in Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, you know, right? So based on whoever you have visited earlier, it will populate saying that this might be a known person to you. This might be a known um, person from your past visits, with whom you can be a friend, right? The friend list is auto suggested to you by this Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. So it's all personalization which is happening. So these are the technologies or the products of the future. I'm not no longer talking about products which we used to buy earlier. Right? We used to buy a television by Samsung. We used to buy a VCR player or a DVD player by LG. So these are all products which we still use, right? But we no longer kind of embrace the technology of those products, because the products of the future are these where we are having these AI and ML technologies building this. Now, why it is all happening now? As I told, there was an AI winter for two times, right? And it all went down, and people again started doing this. So, why it is happening now is because of three things. One is powerful computing. So, if you have heard about this technology called GPU, GPU is General Processing Unit, which is 1,000 times faster than your normal CPU, right? So you use normal CPU for our day-to-day life, but if you want to build AI ML algorithms, you need to have machines with GPU processing power, right? And it is increasing 1,000 times day by day. Day by day, you are seeing this technology and or the computing power is increasing. That is the one of the key factors. Like, and thanks to companies like Nvidia and others who have built these powerful technologies called GPU, which enables us to process huge amount of data. And these technologies are needed because we need to process huge amount of data. Nowadays, we are surrounded by data, and I'll show that in the next slide, right? Every minute, something is happening behind us, without being us aware, and lot of data is getting created. So where do you store this data and how do you process the data? Thanks to again cloud computing and companies like Microsoft, AWS, Google, which are allowing us to store all this data into a virtual environment or in a cloud environment, right? We no longer are going to buy these terabytes of hard drives. I have stopped buying hard drives for a long time now, because everything I'm buying is I'm just subscribing to Google Cloud, and every month I'm paying 130 rupees, and I'm getting 100 GB of data, right, hosted in the cloud. And it is easier because I no longer have to carry this hefty um, what you call this drives, right? So I'll just give you a brief thing. I was in US, and I came back to India, and I had to carry a lot of data because I was working there for last 10 years, and that time I didn't have any cloud technologies to store this. So you won't imagine that in one of my suitcase I had 10 hard drives, only hard drives in one of my suitcase, and I packed them, bubble wrapped them, so that my data is not lost. And throughout the 20 hours journey, I was so tensed, only thinking about how is my data, right? Because I packed it and hopefully it is safe. And also one more thing is the customs guys should allow me, because they should not think that I am stealing something from any other place, right? So all these were the tensions in the past, because we were worried about how the data I have to carry from one place to another. Now I don't have to worry. Even for this session, I uploaded everything in Google Drive, right? And I just access from another computer. So same thing you can do. So thanks to cloud computing, thanks to the processing power. And the third important factor is data. Huge amount of data is created every minute. Now, as I am talking, and as you guys are listening, you can see that in 60 seconds, how much data is getting created. 4.7 million videos are being viewed, right? Can you imagine? 1.9 million text messages are being sent. 7 7 lakh 64,000 hours are being watched, right? And people are tweeting these many times. So imagine in 1 second, even though we sleep, data never sleeps. So that's why I call data never sleeps, because every every minute counts for data, and data is getting generated, getting stored, getting used, and getting processed, right, throughout all over the globe. So this is what I would say. Data is being captured all over the places. So now we have sensors everywhere. We go to malls, we go to different places. We have cameras and sensors catching our data, catching our photos, and it is immediately being stored somewhere, right? We are no longer in an isolated environment. We are surrounded by data, and people are capturing data every time. So anyway, and you guys are in the generation of selfies, right? Wherever you go, you take selfies, and I have seen people taking selfies from the top of the cliffs, and many people have also fallen down, but still they have not learned any lessons, right? Because people want data, people want to capture each and every moment of what they are doing in their life, and every second they are capturing. So all these digital images, videos, online shopping, Twitter data, Facebook data, sensors, everything is capturing the data, and these are getting stored in somewhere in the cloud, and these are getting processed using the GPUs and the machines which are built to process the data. So these are the three important factors, right? Remember, this is very important. One is data, one is processing power, one is the storage, which is enabling now again AI ML to grow, and it will grow, continue to grow, right? There is no more AI winter coming in our lives. It will keep on growing. So with that, you now understand why we are talking about AI now, and what are the key drivers to drive AI and ML in the future. So let's understand the AI ML technologies which are going to enable this. So let's start with something called business intelligence, right? So all of you must be knowing of what is business intelligence. That's the technology which is still there, but no longer used much. But it was more prominent when I was growing up, where people are talking about business intelligence, right? Because what we had in our generation is, we had a lot of data with us, past data with us. We didn't know what to or how to predict the future data, but we knew that what to do with the past data. We had the past data, and we were able to generate some insights, some analytics based on the past data, right? So that is what is all about business intelligence. You are predicting the past. So you have a past data, and you are able to show it in a dashboard in some visualization form, you are going to present it saying that this is what is your sales record, this is what is your maybe buying power by your in your website, this is what is happening in your business, right? You are able to predict the past, but you are not able to predict the future. That is when machine learning came, when you started predicting the future. So you have a past data. Now how I can predict what will happen in the future, right? Because we have these models, we have these intelligent machines or the models or algorithms, whatever we call. They are taking this past data, they are learning the patterns in this data, and they are able to predict what will happen in the future, right? So that is the basic premise of machine learning. You have the data, there is a model which learns, and it is able to predict what is going to happen in the future. So that is machine learning. So data science is again nothing that with this prediction we are creating the future. So you are able to generate the insights what will happen in the future, right? So that is the data science. It's a study which is enabling you to create the future. So what you will do is with data science is you are able to generate these beautiful insights or a beautiful design or the landscape, saying that based on the past I'm able to predict this. So you're going to show that 10 years from line, the 10 years down the line, you'll have this is the future, right? And you are going to show that to your organizations or anywhere. That is the data science. So generating insights and future. Then you are also exploring the future using artificial intelligence. Okay, so this is the your journey. How we started from the past, we are predicting the future, we are creating the future with data science, and we are exploring the future with artificial intelligence. And I'll talk all this again once more. So this is your Venn diagram, and you all should remember, right, how all these technologies intersect. So most of the places these technologies are interchangeably used, but I would like to differentiate it in a manner so that you understand, right, the basics. So artificial intelligence is nothing but imagine that a machine or a system is trying to behave like a human, right? So consider a machine is trying to talk to you, or it's doing a chat with you, or it is doing something like image captioning, or there's a self-driving car, or there's a machine which is trying to um, generate translations, right? All these are machines who are possessing intelligence like a human. So just in a simple terms, understand artificial intelligence is nothing but ability for the machines to behave like human. So whenever you see a machine is behaving like a human, that is nothing but artificial intelligence, because you are building this intelligence or artificial intelligence to a machine to behave like a human. Okay, that is a simple definition, remember that. Second is machine learning. So whenever a machine learns patterns, so as I told you earlier, machines have now the algorithms or the ability or the models to learn the patterns from the data and able to predict what will happen, right? It is able to predict, it is able to do classification, it is able to do a recommendation. So all these techniques are called machine learning, because you have a machine which is behaving intelligently, that is AI. Then you have a machine which is learning. So as I am learning every day, I keep learning. So that is my motto, right? Learn every day. So you all should be also doing that. Every day I'm reading some book, I'm learning something, getting some new knowledge. Same thing whenever a machine does that, it is getting learning something new, some new data, new pattern. That is called machine learning. Now, what is data science is, once the machine has learned and it is able to derive patterns, then when you are deriving the insights and correlation between these patterns, that is called the data science, right? When you are able to derive insights and correlation between two sets of data, so you are saying, okay, this is the data where you have you are doing a clustering, for example, you have lot of I'll say simple example, right? So suppose farmers are growing a lot of crops, and now you don't have people to segregate. Suppose different crops. You have corn, you have plantains, you have suppose eggplants, and you have potatoes and tomatoes. Now everything is mixed. Now you are doing clustering where you are segregating. This is a different crop. This is a different crop. This is a different crop, right? And there you are deriving insights that each of these crops need this level of water, this level of sunlight, this is a lifespan of each crop. And if there is any correlation between these suppose crops, saying that okay, the potatoes and tomatoes will grow under the same conditions of water and sunlight, right? This is the correlation you are deriving between the data. So what you are doing, three things. One is you are deriving insights, or you are doing a clustering saying that these are the different kinds of crops. Then you are deriving correlation, and also you are presenting this in a manner saying that this is what you should do using these technologies which will help you to grow these crops in these conditions, right? So you are presenting your storytelling. This is nothing but your data science, where you need three things. One is deriving insights, identifying the correlation between the data, and you should be able to present this. So storytelling is again an important aspect of data science. So unless you tell the story, suppose this is a story I'm telling about a crop, so you should be able to build a story around any other industry, any other use case, and you should be able to present it. So that's a storytelling, which is the part of data science. So these are the three things. So all these things, if you see, they're interrelated, right? The machines are behaving intelligently, machines are learning, and you are deriving these insights and correlations using these machines only. And then deep learning is one level deeper into your machine learning, and it is a kind of a machine. It is part of the subset of machine learning where you are going deeper, right, using artificial neural networks. So these neural networks are similar to your brain. So in your brain, you have all these neural networks, right, where each and every cell is linked with another cell using neurons, and where you will get an input, right? So suppose now I'm telling you, you're getting an input from my voice to your brain, right? You're learning machine learning now. This is an input to you. Now your brain is taking my input and it is processing using all these interrelated neurons. It is processing the data, and then you will get an output when you will learn this technology, and you will be able to understand this technology, right? And you will be able to talk on this technology. That is the output. Similarly, same example, you are passing inputs to a machine, and these inputs are being learned using artificial neural networks, and then output is generated. It's called deep learning, and I'll talk about that more. But at a high level, understand these four technologies are interrelated to each other in form of this Venn diagram, and this is very important for you to understand this and how these are interrelated to each other. And this is the basics of this technology. I hope this is clear for everyone. Is there any question or anything which I can answer now? Okay. Okay, then if there are no questions, then I'll keep continuing. So now let's go deeper into what are the types of machine learning algorithms in place, right? So basically, there are three types of machine learning algorithms. One is supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. And I'll give an example for you to have this picture in your mind, right? Whenever somebody talks about supervised learning, what is that? So if you see this picture, and if you have seen this movie called Office Space, and I recommend all of you to see this movie, right? Office Space. So what happens in that movie is there is a boss who is always standing over the employee's desk, right, over your shoulder, to guide or to tell him or to pester him every minute, saying that, are you doing this way? I have given this work. When are you going to finish it? I have given you all these files. How are you going to do this work? So he's keep on pestering these employees, right? And he is standing over the desk or over the shoulder to guide them, and also keep on troubling them, saying that I have given this, what is the outcome? So this is something called supervised learning, when we are being supervised by using labels. So suppose I am giving you pictures of cats and dogs, right? And I have given the machine a 10,000 pictures of cats and dogs, and I have told the machine that this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a dog, right? I have given the labels for cats and dogs, cats and dogs. Now I am supervising it. I'm adding the label to this. Now the machine takes these pictures, understands, okay, this is the cat, because it understands its feature. So there's a feature engineering which goes behind the scene, where the machine would understand, saying that cat has these kind of eyes, these kind of whiskers, the body structure is like this, and it has the shorter tail or longer tail, and it has a lot of hair. So all these are features, right? Hair, the structure of the eye, the whiskers, the mouth, the color of the eyes, all these are features which is the machine is learning. So those are the patterns which it is learning, and it is saying that okay, I have seen now 10,000 pictures of cat. Next time somebody gives me a cat, picture of a cat, I should be able to predict that's the cat, right? So that is what is supervised learning. I have given you labels, I have told you this is cat versus dog. Next time you have to work correctly and you have to predict. So that's what this boss is doing. He is giving the work. He's saying I have taught you whatever I am intended to teach you. Next time I ask you, you have to do it correctly, right? Or else you will be out of the job. So that's the job of supervised learning. Unsupervised learning is something where you don't have any label data. You are learning with no labels, right? So consider an example of a baby. When a baby is born, right, it doesn't have any knowledge of what is there in the surroundings. It learns by its own, by seeing it. So suppose it is seeing the dog for the first time, it understands that the dog would look like this. It has two eyes, long tail, maybe long ears, and a mouth like this and a nose like this, and it will have a lot of fur, whatever, right, is the dog. Next time you give or you bring another dog to the home, it will immediately recognize that's a dog because it has already learned those features by itself. Even though we didn't tell the baby that it's a dog, but it has learned by itself, right? It is an unsupervised learning. You're not supervising the baby to learn, and it is doing by itself. But if you bring a cat to the baby, it will not recognize. It will shy away, or it will be afraid from it, and it will run away. And some different animal has come, but it will not shy away from a dog because it has already seen the dog. It has learned the features without being explicitly told. So that is unsupervised learning, right? When you don't tell the machine without any labels, it will learn by itself. Is called unsupervised learning. And I'll give more examples. Third one being reinforcement learning. So this is again one of the new technologies in machine learning, where it is based on some reward system. So there is an action, and based on the action there is a reward, and based on that the machine would learn. So suppose let's take an example of a Mario game, and you all would have played the Mario game, right, in your childhood or maybe now. When the Mario does not know that which brick, when it breaks or hits, there will be a reward versus there will be punishment, right? So it will keep on trying. It will keep on hitting the bricks, keep on hitting the bricks, and whenever it gets a reward, it knows that next time I should hit such type of a brick so that I will earn this reward. I'll grow more taller, or I'll have more powers, right? And then next time is whenever it hits a brick, and there is something which is a punishment which eats Mario, then next time it will learn that okay, next time it will learn and say that I'll not hit such type of a brick, right? So this is again example of reinforcement where there is an action. So it is doing an action. What it is doing is it is breaking the bricks, that is the action, and it is learning based on the reward system. So there is a reward whenever it gets whenever it does something correctly, when and there's a punishment whenever it does not do correctly. So and it is learning which way to do, right? Same example I'll take. Suppose you again example of a baby. When a baby tries to walk, right, and it is touching something which is very hot, so whenever it touches something hot, it knows that there's a punishment. Immediately it will lift its hand, right? And suppose it touches something which is cold, then it will keep on putting the hand there because it knows that it is not a punishment, it is something which is a reward, right? Same thing. So the way these are like learned, the machines are learning based on the reward and the punishment. So that is called reinforcement learning. So we are reinforcing the actions based on the reward system. So I'll talk more about that, but at this point, understand these are the three types of machine learning technologies which are prevailing now and which you should be learning. Now, this is the entire taxonomy, and where all these, like each and every type of machine learning will have different types, again, subcategories like classification and regression, and each one will have a different example. For example, image classification. As I told, you want to classify image of a dog versus a cat, right? You're classifying that. You're diagnosing something from a report saying that cancer versus not cancerous. And you are getting, you are classifying emails, suppose spam versus ham. So you are getting all these emails every day, and you are using classification to classify which are spam versus ham. fraud versus not fraud, right? All these are classification example. Then you have something called regression, which is used to predict something which is linear, right? Which says, so for example, you are trying to buy a house, and you know that based on the past history, you know that this locality, what is the past, the rate of the house, what is the square feet of the house, what is the nearest amenities to the house, all those criteria. Based on that, you are trying to predict the price of an house, right? So these are like a regression problem where you're trying to predict something or forecast something. Then you have unsupervised learning, which I was telling, where you are trying to cluster. So you are trying to segment some market, you're trying to segment some customers. So again, this is mostly used in your retail industry, where you are trying to cluster some customers or the market based on the buying pattern. So for example, I stay in Hyderabad, right? And people in Hyderabad, they have different food habits. So they eat a lot of biryani versus people who are in different places where they have other eating habits, like maybe they eat in Bengal and in Orissa, they eat a lot of sweets, right? Versus they are in Lucknow or in north place where they use a lot of parathas and lot of ghee, right? So all these are your clustering based on the region. So suppose somebody is doing an AI/ML clustering algorithm on India, and based on the food eating habit, they will cluster Hyderabad on biryani, Bengal and East India on a lot of sweets, and North India a lot of rotis and parathas and ghee, right? So that is the clustering you're doing. So that is the unsupervised learning. Then you have reinforcement learning, which I was telling. All this reinforcement learning is used in your building games. So all these games which you see, latest games, are built using reinforcement learning. Even the AlphaGo, which I gave an example, which has beaten the Lee Sedol, right? The famous Go player was built using reinforcement learning. Okay. So at a high level, understand these three types and the examples of these three types of machine learning. So now let's go one level deeper. Well, I'll give an example again of supervised learning classification. Right. So we all know supervised learning is where I'm giving you more labels. I'm telling you this is cat versus dog. I'm telling you this patient is diabetic versus non-diabetic. Right. So in this example, let's see that I'm giving a list of features saying that this is the age, weight, and blood pressure. Based on this, I'm giving you a label also, like saying that it can be diabetic, no, which is a label 0. Maybe 65 years, 200 weight, 200 pounds, BP of 120, he is a diabetic patient. Like this, I'll give you data with labels. Now, what will happen is, and this is how you will classify this, right? So there is a line which classifies saying that diabetic versus non-diabetic, cat versus dog. All this is a classification line, right? Which will classify this data. Now, next time I give you in the real production, real test environment, what I will do is I'll give you age, weight, and BP, and you have to predict, or the machine has to predict whether it's diabetic versus non-diabetic, right? So that is the actual power of this classification algorithm, and how easily and how accurately it is able to predict. So typically we go with accuracy ratings of more than 95%, so that it consistently keeps on predicting, right? Similar examples of this is, again, I was telling, spam versus not spam, right? So you have a lot of emails flooding your mailbox. I have a lot of emails which are flooding, and my email provider is able to classify spam versus ham mail. So whichever are spam, it is automatically moving into the spam folder, versus ham mails which are important for me. Another example is you are classifying the images here based on the kind of the images, right? So these are all classification images. Now, another type of algorithm in supervised learning is regression. I was telling, you're able to predict something, a numerical label based on some features of the past, right? So if you remember from your school, college days, a linear equation, right? Y is equal to mx plus c, where is mx plus c is the slope and the intercept, right? Where you have this line passing through x and y axis, and you want to plot the best possible line which will predict the next value correctly. So this is the classic example of regression and linear regression, where based on the historical data you are able to predict. So this, in this example, if you see, based on the type of the engine size, the year, make, the mileage, you are able to predict the price of the car. You are given these labels, right? Next time you have to predict the car price correct. You're here, you are not doing categorizing the data. In earlier example, you're categorizing. Remember, this word categorization and classification go hand in hand, right? You're not categorizing whether to buy or not, whether to whether diabetic or not, whether cat versus dog. You're not categorizing it. What you are doing, you're predicting a value. What is the house price? What is the car price? Or another example is, suppose there is a weather app, right? And you want to do a classification versus regression. So in classification, what it will do is it will predict based on the temperature. It will say whether it's hot or cold. Suppose I give saying that 74 degrees Fahrenheit, it will say it is cold weather versus hot weather, right? That is a classification. But in prediction, what will happen is it will predict the temperature based on the criteria, saying that okay, today it is cloudy, today it is sunny. Based on this, it will say it is 74 degrees or 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So that is the regression it is doing. It is predicting some value. Okay, so that is a difference. So a difference between classifying or categorizing between regression and the prediction which is doing. So I hope this is clear. Now with that, let's move to clustering. Again, clustering, I was giving an example, right? Based on the unsupervised learning, based on the data, it will cluster. And here we are not giving any labels, right? So I told you example of food habits. There is a clothing habit. So people wear different clothes in India based on the regions. Again, this is a kind of a clustering. Or the buying habits of clothes. So suppose Amazon is or Flipkart is doing clustering based on the demographics, right? So suppose it is doing saying that people of South India versus North India versus East and West, what are the buying habits of clothes between different people. And you can see a lot of clusters which are being formed. You will see different pattern there, different pattern here, different pattern here. So that is the clustering. Okay, and there are other algorithms also in unsupervised, but for now just understand what is clustering. So again, this is an example, right? Clustering of penguins based on the size of the beak, color of the beak, and the body pattern, right? So if you can see, these three have different colors. So this has a different color in the face. This has a different color in the face. This has a different color in the beak and the face. So these two are grouped together. These two are grouped together. These two are grouped together. So this is clustering. One more is, again, I was telling about the crops, right? You have a lot of suppose different colors of potatoes which are coming together. Now you do a clustering based on the color, right? So this is the clustering. I hope this is clear. Now let's move on to reinforcement learning. So as I was telling about the Mario game and the Go game, this is based on the reward and the action. So you are given an environment. Suppose you are given an environment to play chess, and based on the moves, you are given a reward. Suppose you make a good move, and you have beaten the opponent, right? So the machine will learn that this is a reward because it is beating the opponent with this move, this kind of move. But there is another move where opponent beats you, right? So this is a punishment for you. The machine will learn that it should not do such kind of a moves anymore. So it is a reward based system similar to humans, I was telling, right? Where a child learns based on the its actions. So suppose, or I'll give another classic example of you being in college now, right? And let's take in a funny way. Suppose you have a group. Now there is a new student who joins you. And now that the new student does not know which group to mingle. Suppose you have different groups, and one group is always watching movies, going out, right, having fun. Another group is studious group, right? You have geeks in your group who is always studying in the room and surrounded by books. Now this person, new person, suppose I am a new joinee to your college. So though I am not aged now to go to a college, but suppose I am a new student, right? Hypothetically. Now I join your college. I joined the first group. I am enjoying my life, right? I'm having party time Friday, Saturday, and Sundays. I don't know. Maybe I pulled you out of this party now and teaching AML, right? But suppose I'm in that group where I'm doing this nice time, right? But end of the year, I see my marks are bad. My parents scold me. My teachers scold me. I'm a bad student because I mixed with this group. I got a punishment of bad marks, right? And I got a punishment from my parents. My pocket money was freezed. Now I am only left to read books. I don't have any pocket money to do partying or to enjoy my life, right? Now I am in the next group where I am given money only to buy books. I'm reading, reading, reading. Next semester, I score maybe good marks, 80 to 90%. Now I'm given a reward that, okay, my parents say, now you have improved. Now I give increase your pocket money, right? This is an example I think you should relate because you still are in college. So your punishment is you mix with the first group, you lose your marks, your pocket money is cut. Now you go to the next group, and where you have study hard, you score good marks, and you get good pocket money again, right? So this is a reward and punishment, and this is a reinforcement learning. So understand or remember this example. Now let's move to deep learning. Now you learned what is supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning within machine learning, right? Now there is a subset called deep learning. So deep learning, again, as I was telling, right, it learns based on the neural networks, which if you can see, these are all the neurons, which are artificial neurons, which are mimicking the human brain neurons, right? So the best example I'll give you is one is um, uh, computer vision and natural language processing. So these are applications of deep learning. So suppose computer vision is nothing but uh, a machine is mimicking whatever our visual system is doing, whatever our eyes are doing. Now you are watching this slide, right? And from this slide, you are reading. So, okay, I'm reading about deep learning. I'm seeing a self-driving car. So this is all going as an input through your vision, which is your eyes, and then this data is being processed in your mind using your neurons, and you are able to generate an output saying that, okay, this is a picture of a car, or this is a picture of a bus, this is a picture of a truck, right? That is the processing of the output. Similarly, in artificial neural networks, the computer vision technology takes this image. Okay, it is doing an image classification here. It will take this image, it will process this image, it saying that, okay, this is a cat versus dog versus car versus truck, and it will generate an output saying that this is a car, not a truck, right? Here what it is doing is there are a lot of feature analysis or feature engineering it is doing behind the scene in all these neurons. So I conduct deep learning sessions for a lot of students across the world, where I explain what happens in deep learning, right? And so, but at a high level, in deep learning, what happens is each and every layer, it will do a feature engineering automatically. So what do we mean by feature engineering is it will extract important features and it will learn from important features. So for example, in self-driving car example, so in self-driving car, what are the inputs? Inputs are nothing but your sensor data, your GPS, your maps, your radar, and all those things are input, right? Based on this input, the car takes these images saying that, okay, now I am driving straightway, I have a traffic light. It will capture the image from the sensor. It will say that there are nearby two cars near to me, there's one car rear to me, and I have to take a right turn, for example, right? These are all the inputs. Now the features are, it has detected there is a two car, one car on the left, one car on the right. It has detected there is a traffic light. It has detected there is an obstacle which is coming maybe 10 meters down the line, and it has also detected there is a pedestrian who is crossing, right? So it is all the features it is detecting in the first layer. This is the first layer of neural networks. Now it is processing these features, and in the next layer what it is doing is it is doing a prediction, or again one more layer of feature engineering, where it is saying that, okay, there is an obstacle, so now I have to press the brake. Okay, there is a diversion, I have to take a right turn. So it will move the steering automatic, right? It will move steering left or right based on the inputs. Or it will do press an accelerator, it will see nothing is there, now I can go 120 miles per hour. I'm in a highway, nothing is there in front of me, I can go 120 miles per hour, right? How self-driving car is doing this, I have a separate session where I conduct on self-driving cars. So there is a lot of feature engineering which will go behind the scene in using deep learning. So at a high level, understand deep learning is used for all these sophisticated applications like self-driving car, computer vision, natural language processing, to predict or to recommend or to guide the humans to do the next best action, right? So again, the type of algorithms which we have in deep learning is, again, I'll not go in details, and we can take in a separate session, but there is something called convolutional neural networks, which is CNN, which is mostly used for your image processing. So all these computer vision problems, remember, you can classify, you can predict, or you can do anything recommendation using this CNN network, which is called convolutional neural network. Second one is recurrent neural network. This is mostly used in your time series prediction or in your stock predictions. All these historical data prediction is using recurrent neural network, because here what happens is you have a memory or the hidden layer in between. So you have something called as an input, and the layer learns something from the input and it retains that, and it adds that to the next set of input, and then it keeps on adding that input from the previous layer. So it's a is a hidden layer where there is a state which is being added to the input. So at this stage, I think it's very difficult for you to understand, but remember that recurrent neural network has a inbuilt state of memory. Okay. And LSTM is one more version of a recurrent neural network where the memory state is expanded to a lot of different hidden memory states. So in our simple RNN, we have only one hidden state or memory, but in LSTM, there are more layers of hidden states or memory states so that it can remember for a longer period of time. So remember, recurrent neural network can remember, but suppose you have 10,000 layers of hidden, it will not remember beyond maybe 1,000 layers. But in LSTM, it will remember till the 9,900 layers, right? It will remember because it has a long term memory. So recurrent neural network is like short term memory, right? It will remember. So if you know the movie called Gajani, Amir Khan's movie, right? So recurrent neural network is something like Gajani movie where it will remember but short for a short time. But LSTM has a long-term memory. It will remember for a longer period of time. And it is used in machine translation, because machine translation, you need to understand whatever letters or words which has been there from the input layer, and it has to remember till the last layer. Okay. So at high level, just remember these are the three most prominently used deep learning algorithms. One is CNN, RNN, and LSTM. Okay, and there are a lot of more which is coming in future. Now, with that, um, let's take 15 more minutes to understand the landscape of how these algorithms work, right? So, as we understand, right, any algorithm would have some training data, and this from this training data in supervised learning, we'll have labels. What happens is in this algorithm, which is the middle piece, this can be any kind of algorithm. So there are a lot of algorithms in the market, right? We have simple k-means algorithms, we have k nearest neighbor, we have SVMs, we have a random forest, we have SVM, decision trees. So all these are different kinds of algorithms, right? We have linear regression, logistic regression. All these are algorithms which are built using tools, machine learning tools, right? So suppose you are using one of the algorithms. Suppose one of the classification algorithm you are using, and you are given a training data. So what this algorithm will do is it will learn from this training data, and with a new data, whenever it comes, it will try to predict, right? So that's a simple thing which it will do. Now if you expand this pipeline, so what happens is, so you have initially a training data set. So you have a data set, for example, you have a raw data. So let's take an example of in the medical or healthcare industry, there is a radiologist, right? A job of a radiologist. So radiologist is somebody who will look at your x-rays, and he or she will try to analyze the x-rays based on the structure. If he sees any anomalies, he will say that he or she will say that it is a cancerous versus non-cancerous, right? So that is a simple job of a radiologist. He or she will analyze the x-rays, get the data, and then do some prediction. So let's say the same example. Suppose the radiologist now gather a lot of x-rays or the raw data, right, from lot of patients. Now based on these patients data, the algorithm in the algorithm, what you will do is you will divide this data between training and test. So when I say training, is this data you will feed to the machine to train, right? Because you have feeding with lot of labels, so you'll feed the data to the machine to train the machine, so that next time you give a new x-ray, it will be able to predict whether it's a cancerous versus not cancerous, or whether it will predict whether there is a lump versus not lump, right? So that is the test. So ideal condition I would suggest is you all go with 70 to 80% of training data. Your training data should be huge, or else you will end up in something called a classic problem of overfitting. Because what will happen is the algorithm will work during the training time. In overfitting, what happens is it will not work in the test time, in the real time. So you'll be happy, okay, my algorithm has worked, it has able to predict, but when you give an actual new data, it will not be able to predict, right? So that's an overfitting problem. So what happens is, that's why I would suggest go with 70 to 80% of training data. So suppose you have 10,000 records, go with 8,000 training data. You train the algorithm, let the algorithm learn the patterns. Now with the rest 20, you do the test. You give the test data and now you start predicting. So that is what you are doing. You are pre-processing the data, you are defining the labels, you are defining the label that's saying that this, in this picture, this is lump versus not lump. You are predicting cancerous versus not cancerous. You are giving the data, right, based on the different charts or different X-ray pictures. You are labeling the data. You are dividing the data. Now you are feeding into the algorithm. The algorithm will learn, and then next time in the prediction, it will predict. Now with the new data, it should be able to predict correctly, right? So this is your entire machine learning pipeline. When I say pipeline, why I say it as a pipeline, because you're feeding something and you're getting something output. A simple pipe, right? You're ingesting a water and you are getting water out of it, right? Same thing. You're ingesting the data and raw data to it, and it is able to predict something through the pipeline. So understand and remember this, right? This is a machine learning pipeline. For all the machine learning problems which you will do in your career, you have to understand this pipeline and you have to apply this pipeline, so that your algorithms will become more efficient and you will be able to predict the results more accurately. Okay, so now with that, let's take a quick pause and see if anybody has any questions, or else I'll go with the next topic. I hope you guys are able to understand, you are able to relate, and hope this is interesting. Any questions or any feedback? Am I going too fast or too slow? Anything? Okay. If not, then maybe, okay, let's see the chat. Okay. Okay. Someone says it's interesting, and okay. Okay. Then let's continue. Um, Now I think I have given you enough motivation, right, to understand why we are doing this and how we are doing this, right? So why is, we started with the journey, what is the motivation, how we are doing this is, what are the different algorithms we learned in machine learning and AI. Now we will talk about the where part, right? Where we are going to apply. Now we have learned how to do this. Now where to apply this? This is a section to see this. Okay, I'll come to this later, but let's start with the application. So again, voice recognition, speech recognition, and these virtual assistants, right, are the first applications of AI and ML which we have been using for a long time now. So again, I'll take a real life example from my life. As I was telling, I use Google Home to control my home devices. Right, every day morning I instruct it to switch on the switch off the light, switch on, switch off the geyser, because I forget to switch on and switch off the geyser, right, for myself, because I'm busy in something else. I forget to do that. So I instruct my Google Home to do this. Now, Google Home is running behind again AI ML algorithms. I just instruct it to do this. Now I have Alexa, which is taken care to for my entertainment purposes. So on my daughter's entertainment, where it is able to play songs, it is able to predict the weather and tell me the directions and everything, which is done by Alexa. Right, again, Google Home, Alexa, and I have Siri on my phone, which is telling me the directions while I am driving the car. When I reach office, I have Cortana, which is taken over my Outlook, and it is telling me I am late for this meeting for 5 minutes, or I have something which is important coming in next 1 hour, or it is also nowadays Cortana is analyzing my emails which I have sent. And I'll give an interesting example, right? So, and that's why you should never commit over an email. And that's the lesson which I learned recently. I said someone that I would give something by Monday morning 10 a.m. Now I forgot about that 10 a.m. and I thought, okay, I have some time. But Cortana is so intelligent. It analyzed my email, and it started reminding me that you mentioned on Friday that you will give something at 10 a.m. on Monday, and you are nowhere near that. Now I am at around 12 a.m. I got to know that I had to deliver at 10 a.m. But thanks to Cortana, it kept on reminding, but I kept on ignoring it, right? So you understand that this is the power of the technology which you are going to learn, you are going to embrace, you are going to apply, right? You do no longer need a human assistant, and these are the jobs which are going to go away, and this is already gone away. And this is my prediction that you no longer need a human assistant, you no longer need a human translator, no longer need a personal assistant, right? All these are gone because you have this digital assistant, Google, Siri, Cortana, Alexa, to guide you, to tell you everything. Another example I'll give, I have been conducting training across the world, right? And I visit Spain most of the time. Before 2 years before, right? 2020, I visited there, where I used to have a person who used to translate for me. Every time, everywhere I go, this person would come with me. I had to pay for his lunch and everything, and because he used to translate for me, even for directions and anything. Now I went before pandemic, before last year, right? Where I was surprised to see that everything has changed because I have Google Translate with me, and whenever I show Google Translate to any of the boards, or whenever I go and show to any of the menus in the restaurant, it used to translate for me automatically. I no longer needed this assistant who was there, and I used to pay him, right? Now everything is with me with Google Translate. I just downloaded and everything was happening. So this is the power, right, of the machines which are built using AML, and Google Translate is built using natural language processing. This all these assistant, personal assistant are built using natural language processing. Right? Now another example I'll give is named entity recognition, which is again one more application of natural language processing, where what happens is, suppose you visit a place, and you want to tag the place saying that this is a person, this is suppose you visit Statue of Liberty, right? And you want to tag automatically saying that this is the place, this is a statue, this is a location in New York, and this is the person, suppose Raghav. So all these are entities, and you are giving tags to these entities, right? This is done by named entity recognition. Another example is sentiment analysis. Again, this is a classic example, right? And you go to Twitter and you watch a lot of tweets. And again, recent is pandemic, recent is US election, lot of sentiments, a lot of reviews there. And this Twitter analysis or sentiment analysis is able to give you a proper chart or data about what will go wrong versus what will go right. Another example is movie recommendations, right? IMDb. So earlier, right, 10 years before, I used to ask somebody to tell me which movie to watch, right? And then I used to buy tickets and go to a watch movie in the theater. Now we don't need any person. Before watching any series or any movies, I go to IMDb and I see, okay, what is the rating? Only rating beyond 7.5 is what I should watch, because I have limited time every day to watch any movie. I don't want to waste my time, right? Or you want to buy a book, you go to Amazon, you go to Google, you go to Goodreads, and Goodreads and Amazon gives you the ratings and the reviews and tells you to buy this book or not. Right? This is all classic examples of your sentiment analysis. Then you have an image recognition and face recognition, right? Again, you tag a photo, you tag a picture, you tag a person. All these are face recognitions and vision captioning, which is done by your computer vision algorithm. So all these are applications around you using natural language processing, computer vision, which is again deep learning, and using machine learning technologies. Yeah, I already spoke about recommender system. Again, IMDb is a classic example. Netflix is a classic example where it is able to predict you what movies should you watch. YouTube, purchase habits using Amazon and others. Right? These are recommender systems. These are applications which you and I are using day to day life. Another interesting example which I recently came to know is about anomaly detection. This is again used in semiconductor industries and pharma industry. So you see the spectrum of these use cases, right? You started with retail, you started with customer facing industries, banks, financial services, Now you move to pharma. In pharma, what happens is a lot of medicines which are getting built right every day, which are packaged. Now in packaging, they had a unique problem that one of the packages will be blister pack. When you say blister pack, something like this, right? One of the medicines is already broken or it is not available because by mistake, when the assembly was happening or the packaging was happening, the machine missed it. Now with this blister pack, what happens is whenever this blister pack was used to send to this medical shops, they used to return the entire packages. And these pharma companies went into huge losses, right? Dr. Reddy's or Cipla or Pfizer, any pharma company if you take, because of this blister packs. Now they implemented AML. What these machines or robots will do is after packaging, this will go and scan each and every package, and it will identify whether there is an anomaly in that package or not. If there is an anomaly, it will cut that pack, it will remove that pack from that package, and it will ship the rest. Right now, we are detecting the anomaly before it goes to the consumer. Right, you are detecting or predicting beforehand, and you are able to prevent a huge loss with this. Similarly, in semiconductor industry, also it is doing an anomaly based on the absence or presence of that particular circuit in the circuit board, right? Whether the chip is present or not. Earlier, you used to ship the products without the chip, and you have to return the entire package. Now you can do that with AIML. So you should appreciate, right, how this is used across industries. Another example, again, I gave an example of farming where you can go and visit these links, right, and where they do a see and spray. So with AIML, what they're able to do is these drones are hovering around your crops, and based on the because you have huge crops, don't need physical people to monitor these crops. Right? You can reduce a lot of manpower now and stop paying them, and instead buy these drones, which are capturing using computer vision technologies, capturing the picture of various places in your farm, in your farmhouse, and then wherever it sees that there are some crops which are getting damaged, or wherever it sees some pests are eating these crops, immediately capture the picture, send it behind. And suppose you are driving, you're enjoying, you're in the movie, it will share in your WhatsApp saying that, okay, this is a place where I see a lot of dryness. What should I do next? You can just click on a button, say that press water. What it will do is it will get another machine to press water, spray water on it, right? Imagine your life has become easier now. Even farmer's life has become easier now, right? A farmer can enjoy it now. For farmer can go and watch movie and just use these machines to spray water or spray pesticides wherever required. Another example is how old is this apple? This is a classic question I ask everyone. And again, now it's the time to answer for you. Suppose you see this apple, which comes a gala apple, right, which comes from US, and you all are eating in your supermarket, and you think it is a fresh apple. So can anybody guess how old is this apple? Looking at this apple, just some guesses. I need just ping in the chat. Some number you can ping. Okay, good. I think somebody did a good. I think they're already using some AI algorithm, I think. So yeah, so if you see, this is around 14 months old apple, right? And why this is there, because and how we know this is using these AIML algorithms again. So there are algorithms which are checking the freshness, the quality, redness of the apple, and it is able to predict that how old is this apple, right? And before now you go to the supermarket to buy this apple, you should be aware that you are eating an apple which is more than 12 months old, right? Don't think that it is a fresh apple looking at the glaze of the apple. And all these are real, right? I'm not telling which is something not happening. All these are real, and you can check, and this is being done using your AIML algorithms. Now another example is sorry, fast, is your video KYC application, which is nowadays used across banks. So Paytm recently launched this, where Paytm is able to do a KYC using your phone. You don't need to go to a bank nowadays to do a KYC, right? KYC, as you know, it's know your customer. You don't have to do that using your you don't have to physically go and do this. Now Paytm does this for you using video KYC. What you have to do is you get an app, you just scan your photo, and you get into a call with a virtual assistant or a real assistant, and you enter your details with this facial recognition and computer vision. What it is able to do is it is able to identify all your biometrics and dimensions. It is able to match against your personal data from your PAN card or your Aadhaar card, and it is going to give a match versus not matched, right? Once everything matches, you are good to go. Your KYC is done within few seconds. You don't have to go to a bank to do this. And this has happened last year, right? Many banks approached me asking what needs to be done so that people who are outside or who are sitting at home can do this KYC and also can be onboarded, because they were losing customers, right? You lose customers when you don't onboard new customers into a bank or a financial company. So with KYC, video KYC, you are able to do it in a seamless fashion. So again, this is one more example. So with those application example, you should be able to appreciate, right, how AIML is being used, and there are a lot of examples, right? This is only limited now because of the limited time, but in due course of time, when future sessions, I'll give you a lot more examples. So now, what is the job market looks like? So the most important skill set again with AI ML demand is your AI, machine learning, and data science. Right? These are the top most skill set which you will find in the market. Now, what are the job of the future? And I call it as cobots because you have to collaborate with a machine when your day-to-day job in future. So what happens is, as I was telling, these jobs are in danger zone, like a person who is a translator. I was giving an example: telemarketer, customer service representative, a tax preparer. You don't need a tax preparer, right? So I have built many applications for many tax companies using AIML who are able to file the taxes automatically, right? You don't need a radiologist. Again, radiologist's job is also in danger zone now because AIML able to do that X-ray for you. And there are some slow creeps where AI and ML machines will augment with the humans to do something which is more productive, right? And this is the job or area where we all should be concentrating. And I'll give you more examples where you have machines in your suppose in hospitals nowadays. What is happening is doctors are using robots which are built using AI/ML technologies to do perform some sophisticated operations where the doctor's hands cannot move, right? A machine can move 360 degrees, but your person's hand cannot move 360 degrees. In real life, we are seeing doctors using this, and humans are embracing these technologies. Humans are not getting scared. In your operation theater, people are seeing robots along with doctors. They are not getting scared because they know that a machine will perform better than a doctor because the doctor is not able to reach to these places. Again, it is used in a manufacturing industry where there are some dangerous skills like cutting or forging or something where you need machines to do those heavy lifting, and you relieve the humans to do something which is more easy and safe, right? This is again happening in manufacturing industries such as BMW car manufacturing. It is using Mercedes Benz, is using all other, Ford is using, all manufacturing companies are using these technologies. And there are techniques like creativity, judgment, emotional, social, right? All these are human techniques which are no longer, which are not going to be taken away by bots, right? Because you cannot create creativity in a machine. So you have seen that Rajnikant movie in Robo, where he has emotions and judgment and all, but that is just restricted to a movie, right? That is not a real. You cannot have a creativity and judgment and emotions to a machine till now. That is, we are not still in a stage where we can generalize AI. We are still in an artificial narrow network, right? And teaching. So I am glad that my job is safe, at least, right? Because AI and machine learning cannot take my job for a long time, because teaching is something which a human can do for now, at least, with again with support from human, with support from machines. Okay. Now, what skills you need to upskill yourself so that you can sustain in this market, right? You are students now. Some people may be working now, but you have to upskill constantly and learn these new technologies. The first one, again, I was telling, is the data scientist kind of a role or technology, where you need to have statistical knowledge, you need to have mathematical skill set, and you need to have a fair amount of knowledge about this AI/ML tools and techniques, right? So that is a data scientist job. So I've divided this into two kind of jobs. One is functional, one is tech job. So when it is a tech, you need some amount of coding knowledge, right? And data scientist job requires medium to low skill set of coding knowledge. But you, as I was telling, you need to know more about storytelling, presenting, deriving insights, analyzing the data. Then you have machine learning engineer, who is like a typical software engineer kind of a role, right? Where you are deep into your coding, you are doing your Java, you are doing your C, C++. Now you upskill yourself with Python or R, and you are performing a job of a machine learning engineer. So you are deep into the weeds now, right? You are learning anything, you are doing the coding, you are building these algorithms, and you are predicting something. So this is a machine learning engineer, which is a hardcore technologist. Now you have automation engineers, similar to machine learning engineer, and where you are again learning different algorithms to automate different use cases. And one more job is applied scientist, where suppose you gain 5 to 6 years of knowledge in machine learning algorithms, then you can go for an applied scientist job, where you can be recruited by these high-end technical companies like Google, Amazon, and others, where you'll be considered as an applied scientist because you have learned, you have built these algorithms, you also have known the use cases on top of which these algorithms are built. So applied scientist is an amalgamation of data scientist and machine learning engineer, where you know what are the use cases, what are the problem areas, where to apply this, and you have already applied this by building these algorithms, and you are going to apply in future as well. So that's the applied scientist job. Now on the functional jobs, if most of you, suppose some of you are functional in nature, where you don't know much of technical knowledge, but you know managerial skills, then there's a job called digital product manager, where you have to learn about different products. So this is where you act as a digital product manager. You understand the digital technology landscape, you understand these tools, and you say that in this problem area I need to apply this kind of algorithm. You don't need to actually code it, but you need to understand the problem and you need to understand which algorithm to apply, right? So for example, you are given with hundreds of, suppose you're working in a bank and you are given with hundreds of statements, fraudulent versus non-fraudulent, right? And now it's your job to decide what to do with those statements which has fraudulent statements. Now what, as a DPM, what you do is you understand that this is a use case where you have to determine this, and you say that okay, now I have to apply classification problem to solve this. So that is the role of a digital product manager. Data analyst again is where you analyze lot of data. Here also you need minimal technical skills, but you need to have a good analysis skill, where you analyze the data, come up with insights, come up with the correlation with the data. And again, business analyst and manager is functional in role, where important part is where you understand the problem statement and apply the techniques. And I have laid out what kind of a experience you need and where to start, right? Now, with all these skill sets, and if you see this diagram, this is where you have this entire pipeline. I was telling you about the pipeline, right? So you start with understanding the problem. So here is when you have a data scientist role, right? Where you understand the business problem, understand the use cases. Then next part is data acquisition, where you have a data engineer or a data analyst job, where you understand the data, you convert the raw data into a label data, you divide the data into test and training data. All this is done by the data engineer. Now once you have the data, once you know the business problem, you, as a machine learning engineer or developer, you apply this skill set, right? You apply the algorithms, you apply classification or a regression or unsupervised learning, whatever. You apply this or you model this algorithms, right? You build your model. Now the fifth step is you do the prediction and then you deploy into your actual environment, which is a production environment. Suppose you're working in a company, right? And you build this algorithm. Now you deploy this in your customer's premises, and when the customer is testing on his real data. So that is where it's called deployment. You deploy that and then you wait for your customer feedback. Now your customer, suppose you build this skill set, new skill set for Alexa, and so let's take an example of Alexa singing some songs in Bengali, right? For example, so this skill set were not available. Now Alexa singing songs in Bengali is a new skill set which you built. You understand the problem is Alexa does not have this skill set. You gather lot of Bengali songs and you gather the data. Now you built an algorithm which generates these songs, and now you deployed in Amazon's AWS environment, right? Now suppose I'm a Bengali person. Now I trigger this algorithm in Alexa saying that Alexa, can you play Bengali songs? Now I'm triggering this, and I'm happy to see that it is playing Bengali songs to me. But for example, suppose it does not play Bengali and it plays Hindi songs to me, then I'm frustrated as a customer, right? Now I go back to Amazon and give a feedback. I use this skill, I'm a AWS skill, but it played Hindi songs for me. Now as a business user, I provided the feedback. So this machine learning team will go back and redesign this, build this, deploy this, and again, it will be given to me. I will test this again, right? So that is the entire pipeline for you to understand, right? And where all which all roles you will be playing. Now let's go to the next slide where I will tell you how to make it actionable, right? The first one you should do is learn Python. So I'll say Python, and I'll talk more about why Python, because Python is the most user-friendly language. And if you know C, C++, Java, or you don't know any language also, then also you learn Python, right? If you have functional background. So Python is the most easiest language, most scalable language, and deployable language. And it does not need any programming experience in the past. It is scientific in nature, it is mathematical in nature. Suppose you learn Python, you can type 1 plus 2, it will give you 3, right? So simple as that. And also it has extensive machine learning and deep learning libraries. So it has libraries for machine learning, for computer vision, for natural language. So you can pick any of them and do a mastery. Now once you learn this language, you can do a small exercise, right? And your college students, now you can do some small exercise post this class is you one group can generate some ideas. So you come up, one group can come up with some ideas, another group can come up with some action. So for example, I come up one group comes up with an idea of rise of personal data. A lot of personal data I'm captured. Suppose in your college you capture a lot of personal data using your sensors, or you take photos, you have a lot of functions, you capture a lot of data. Now in your data, once you have this data, action can be, maybe there are some people who needs to do more exercise or yoga, or there are some people who needs to do who need to participate more into cultural activities, right? These are actions are nothing but you need to do something with this data. So you have a data, personal data, you need to have some action. Now you come up with a POC, proof of concept, or a pilot machine learning algorithm, which says that you built a smart app for your college which predicts which person to do what action. For example, you see a person who is very lethargic, who doesn't do any exercise, automatically that person gets a notification every day saying that you need to do exercise today from maybe 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., for example, right? Another person is more studious, he's studying every day, he's surrounded by the books. You need to tell him that you need to come out of the book, maybe exercise your mind or do some yoga. There's another person who is more into more introvert and who is not seen in any of the photographs, for example, right? So for that person, this app will tell that you need to participate more into cultural activities, right? So there are a lot of such ideas. So as students, you'll come up with more ideas, but I'm giving you so that you will do this exercise right away. You have form a group of students who come up with these trends which are happening now, and with an action, and then combine these two, and then do a small POC or proof of concept, right? And build your own algorithm. So and you'll get lot of data. You'll get lot of data from Kaggle. So Kaggle is a source to get lot of data sets. Google data set again is a search place where you get lot of data set of previous patients data, students data, housing data, everything you'll get. And then the next step to become famous is you create a GitHub profile. GitHub again is a platform where you can showcase whatever you have built. Suppose you build this small algorithm. The best way is to project in GitHub. Now, once you are famous in GitHub, now next stage is go to LinkedIn, project your work, you write blogs in Medium, go to towards data science, write blogs, and then create some YouTube videos. So I'm just telling you so that you spend your college days wisely, learn these tools and technologies, use this exercise to create some algorithms or models, become self. So nowadays this is the world, or this is the era where you have to become yourself famous, right? Nobody will come and make you famous, so you have to market yourself. Go to GitHub, LinkedIn, publish some blogs, and then become famous, so that it will help you in getting job, right? So once you become famous, once people know you, once companies approach you to for the jobs, people know that already you have a GitHub profile, already you have a LinkedIn profile, already you have a YouTube channel where you are explaining about your whatever work you have done during the college using AIML, and they immediately will be recruited for these companies, right? You don't have to worry about that. So again, Python, I'll not go deeper, but this is a slide to explain that Python is the most powerful language you can read now, or you can learn now. And it has all these advantages, right? It is free, open source, it can be deployable easily, it is a beginner friendly, and it has, if you see, a lot of algorithms for machine learning and deep learning. It has NumPy, SciPy for making scientific mathematical calculations, scikit-learn for all these machine learning algorithms, Theano again for scientific, TensorFlow, PyTorch, Keras for deep learning algorithms, Pandas is for your data transformations and data analysis, Matplotlib is for making or plotting or putting some diagrams, right? And this is growing. This is a growing field. So Python is the best language for you to start. Now, I'll not go deeper into this because already we are over the time, but I leave you with these few sites which will prompt you to go there and tell you that these are the sites where the AI ML are getting used now, right? So suppose this site I'll copy and just show you once, um, and you can see this. There is a fake, deep fake which is being nowadays, right? This person does not exist. So if you go to this site, this lady to be real does not exist. This is created using AI and ML, right? This person does not exist. Yeah, and this place does not exist. All these are using Keras, using deep learning. These are created to create deep fakes. And again, one more person would come up. This lady does not exist in real. This is created using AI, ML, and deep learning, and these are called deep fakes. Right? Similarly, you have deep fake places, deep fake faces, deep fake images of other people. Right? Imagine, right? Nobody would have imagined that this can be created using AI and ML. All these people does not exist. Okay, and you will feel like ghostly kind of a. I'm telling something which is ghostly, but is not. This is real. This is happening for real. Another thing is colorization. So you have an older painting, you need to colorize it. You can use this algorithm to do this. And there's something called nextrembrandt.com. You can make a note of this. I'll put it in a chat. Second. So this place does not exist. Nextrembrandt.com. So all these are algorithms. All these are websites which are real. Where in nextrembrandt.com, what you will see is these paintings. Rembrandt is a famous painter. If some of you are inclined towards painting, was in 1700s, 1800s. All these paintings are recreated, and this painting picture is automatically recreated by the machine. Right? Human is not doing this. Okay, and colorization of old images, and there is something interesting here done by Toronto University where handwriting recognition is happening, or handwriting generation is happening, right? Here what is happening is it will give you a list of handwriting, and you type in something, you can choose, and based on that handwriting it will print it. See how easy for you now. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to write also. It will decide an handwriting for you. Okay, how beauty it is, right? Beauty of AI and ML. So another interesting, so with that what I would do is go to the next slide, and I will tell you that AI and ML is the future, right? And you don't have to worry. Future is not dark, future is bright, and we all are going to embrace this future because we have this machines on algorithms which are going to amplify our jobs, our lives, augment our lives, and we're going to build futures, smart cities, smart cars, and with GPT-3, and most of you know what is GPT-3, is an again an algorithm, natural language algorithm, which is built by OpenAI, which is one of the famous companies by Elon Musk, which is using 175 billion parameters to produce human-like text. So what is happening is you don't need anymore a human journalist job, right? The Guardian.com, which is again one of the famous journalism site, it is not using humans. It is using this GPT technology from OpenAI to publish journals. Imagine, right, how a machine can think and it can publish journals. Journal is something which is again used by your creativity, imagination, right? But now it is becoming real that creativity and imagination to some extent is generated by machines. Okay, that is what is happening. So with that, I would leave with this thought that you would be embracing machines, you will be augmenting machines, you will be with the machines in going forward. So don't shy away, learn these technologies and be part of this future with AI ML. Okay, and for that, what you have to do is always keep learning. Follow my motto: always keep learning, and reach out to me for anything in LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn link, and for any questions, any concerns, any feedback, anything, you can reach out to me. Any learning if you want to do, and we'll have more such sessions based on your interest for these sessions, and where we will go into deep dive into machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, CNN algorithm, so that you people are the ones who are building these technologies which I have told now, right? So keep this interest, keep learning, and reach out to us for anything which will interest you, and we can suggest some new trainings so that you can take your AI/ML journey forward, right? So with that, thanks a lot for listening to me patiently, and sorry for all the glitches which happened in the initially. And we have taken 1.5 hours, so I am open for questions now.
Yes, that was a very good session we had with you, sir. And I hope our students will get benefited out of it. And we wish to have more sessions with you. And I was just waiting what is next. Like it isn't over to me yet. So that was very good of you. And yes, we are very much sorry for the delay and the glitches we had initially. I hope our students respond. And if you have any questions, you can ask now in the chat box itself, or you can unmute yourself and you can ask as
Yes,
well.
please. I hope
Anyone
that
with your questions?
I did not make you sleep.
Of course not. That was very much interesting. Anyone out there want to ask anything? Any students? Um, I I guess no one is typing anything. So with this, we close today's session. If anything you want to know or you want to ask, sir has given his LinkedIn link, and also if you wish to reach out to him, you may just mail us, and we will be providing his details as well, and we can get in touch with him again. Thank you so much, sir. Siddhik Silchar, thanks you for this whole session, and sorry for from our end for this technical glitches we had. We are just hopeful that we meet again and we do such sessions more.
Sure, sure.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for being patient and listening to me. And definitely, we can have more such sessions based on the interest, so that
Yes,
we
of
keep
course. Yeah,
learning.
yeah,
Yeah? Thank you.
yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.